what's one belief about music and music's relationship with healing that people normally get completely wrong?
Most people think music's something that's happening to you. And of course it is, but music is also happening in you. And it's just a different awareness of that we don't just listen with our ears, we're listening to music with every cell in our body.
Whoa. So it's not just entertainment, it's actually changing our metabolic structure. How would you explain that?
There's a lot of things that music does in terms of interacting with our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. So if you look at health as 4 pieces of a puzzle, music literally can affect all of them. So it's not just subjective where we're thinking about it emotionally or mentally, but there's also physical changes that can occur when we're listening to music. And more research is being done on objective findings, how music actually affects the physical body. And one of the major things we're seeing, which is the exciting part, is that science is actually catching up to spirituality.
I love that.
Not the other way around.
I really like that. And that's, I've had personal experience with this. Like when I'm working out, I tend not to listen to sad or calm music. I tend to listen to like stuff that'll make me work out more. I was talking to Tyler about this, and it's like when you think of an angry thought or a thought that makes you angry, you tend to be able to push more weight than when you think of something that makes you super happy and like cuddly or whatever. And it's the exact same thing with music. When you listen to music that makes you, that amps you up, you can push more weight. So would you say that that's more of a change to your mind or literally a change to your body when you're listening to music like that?
It's really both. The studies are showing that actually when you're working out, if you're listening to your own music, so they call this preferred music. If you're listening to preferred music, actually you are going to have a better workout and you are actually going to repair more as well because you're listening to music that you prefer. A lot of things happen when you're listening to that type of music. So dopamine, which is a reward hormone, is actually giving you that physical, what you're feeling.
Interesting.
Right? That's pushing you. A lot of things are going on in your pharmacy that music is creating and actually interacting with your physical body. So it starts with your mind because you're thinking it, but then those thoughts have an effect on everything else that's going on.
Gotcha. So you won a Grammy in 2005, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I co-produced a Grammy award-winning track with Les Paul, the gentleman who invented the electric guitar.
Wow.
And yeah, we won for Best Rock Instrumental in 2005.
Nice, man. Well, number one, congratulations. And number two, what was the transition like between, instrumental rock to what you do now? Would you describe it as like almost spiritual music? How would you describe the music that you make now?
Well, there was a time in my life, I think of it as like a fork in the road where I was actually going through that transition, and it actually happened before I started working with Les Paul, where I thought of, well, this is my spiritual music that I'm doing, and this is my pop music that I'm doing. And what I realized was that I had to tear down that wall. So you might have heard the saying, you can only serve one master. Mm-hmm. And that's really the truth, because what happened was when I compartmentalized it that way, I literally stopped the flow state moving into that pop music, and the other way around, stopping the formatted part of the pop music coming in from the more spiritual music. So what I realized was that spirit, God, universe, whatever you choose to call it, is really in everything. And when I took down those walls and said all of my music is spiritual, and all of my music is really geared towards being a bridge. So just like you talked about music, you had an intention of that music taking you to a certain place when you worked out.
Right.
You said very specifically, I don't listen to like sad music or cuddly music when I work out. So you knew where you were before you listened to the music. You know where you want to go. And then it's just a matter of choosing the music and the awareness around that of what that music's going to bridge to. And that's something if you ask yourself with any type of mood shifting or moving to a different state, moving to a more sacred state or moving to a more creative state or moving into a state where you want to be more empathetic or compassionate for somebody else. If you just ask yourself, where am I now? Where do I want to go? And what piece of music will take me there? And literally within probably all of your playlists or music that you love, you probably, most people do, having compartmentalized, not by health or by shifting moods, but, this is my workout playlist.
Yeah.
Or this is my romantic playlist. Mm. Well, what if you had a playlist for gratitude? Mm. What if you had a playlist for sleep at night or a playlist to increase your focus? And it might be some of those same songs, but what shifts within that is the awareness. When you compartmentalize them and now they have an intention behind them, that intention actually acts as a catalyst for moving into the state that you're looking to move into and to achieve and to create benefit with.
Wow. I feel like that's really important what you just said is music acts as a bridge between the where you are now in your desired state, right? That's right. I've heard this study. I'm not sure how true this is, but it sounds true to me that that children that listen to classical music have like higher IQs on average than children that listen to like modern-ish music. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me just because there's a lot more going on to decipher in classical music rather than what we have now with modern music. It's like one drum track and the instrumental just repeats and repeats and repeats. But with something like Beethoven or Bach, it's sophisticated, right? Mm-hmm. What sort of music would you recommend for someone to, let's say, focus, right? If I want to, study for 4 or 5 hours uninterrupted, what music should I put in my ear?
So research is showing that music with no lyrics, number one, is going to be best for that because you don't want to move into the analytical mind or interpreting words because it's going to take you out of your focus. So that's one. The tempo of the music matters as well. And in moving towards focus, you don't want to listen to music that's too slow or too relaxing. So the same music that I would recommend for relaxation or bridging at night would not be the same music that I recommend for focus. Also, it can be formatted. So there could be, a verse section, a main section, and all, because that acts as a grounding as well, in terms of giving you something that is going to be more formatted, but without distracting you. So those are some of the premises. There might be repetitive patterns within the song as well that allow you to move into a trance state, and it really depends on what type of focus that you're looking to move towards, because there's different levels of focus as well. When you're in hyperfocus, like you're moving more into analytical focus where you're trying to decipher information, you have tasks to do and complete, you're in a high beta brain state. So you want your brain waves to be moving with that. And when you're moving into a relaxed and attentive state or a semi-focused state, you can be at the high end of alpha brainwave state. That might be focus, but your focus might be geared more on creativity,
right,
or flow state. So the different brainwave states as well are also targets for where are you before you start, like what brainwave state are you in. You might be in a really relaxed state and you want to bring your energy up, or you don't want to be in a state of anxiety as well, and you might need to come down. You might be a very high beta, but you don't want to be at, the top end of that.
Yeah.
So again, it's really recognizing awareness is always the first key of choosing your music and knowing where you want to end up.
Gotcha. So first, music with no lyrics for focus in specific, music with no lyrics. You don't want anything too slow, right?
Yeah, I would say like mid-tempo.
Okay.
Like music that you listen to, that you use for yoga, Some of that translates very well to focus.
Wow.
In between that, the beats per minute, like just like DJs, we look at beats per minute. Right between 80, 90 beats per minute, or 70, even 70 to 90, depending how much rhythm is going on, works really well for focus. And as you know, like for working out, you're going to be moving to those faster tempos.
Yeah.
Usually 120 beats per minute and above, which is a lot of club music is in.
Yep.
A lot of techno music. A lot of people like using driving music to work out.
Gotcha. So no lyrics, a mid-range BPM, something from like 70 to 90-ish. And then the last one was what?
For working out, I always suggest like 110 and up.
Yeah.
Is really going to get you into more motivated states. Unless you have like a song that really, really like lights your fire, ignites you. The theme song from Rocky was probably not in that 120 range, but how many people have used that to work out?
Exactly.
Because music also creates what are called autobiographical memories. So when you saw Rocky and you're seeing him working out and climbing those stairs and those conquests, it's not just music. You're remembering those scenes.
Oh, I see.
And those triumphs. And even thinking about the song, you don't even have to hear the song. So the studies actually show that you have almost as much benefit when you are imagining that song as to when you're listening to it. Like I could hear it in my head, dun, 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 right? And I'm picturing him walking up those stairs, and your mindset can shift in just thinking about the music that's going to work for you.
That's wicked. So you don't even necessarily even have to play the song. You can just imagine it and sort of listen to it in your head, and your body and brain almost feel the same.
That's what the research shows. Yeah, I mean, the actual of listening to it, I think, is going to create more benefit for you, because there's also what happens when you are listening to a piece of music in the body, and you're feeling the frequencies of the music through a set of speakers or through your headphones. Yeah. The impact of the bass hitting and all those points, I think takes you to another whole level. But there's quite a lot of benefit just from the imagining of it.
Why don't most people? Well, I feel like most people that I know. I shouldn't say just most people in general. Why don't most people that I know these things about music? Why don't they know that it's such a useful tool?
Most of us have had experiences where we've been affected by music in highly profound ways. A song comes on and you're thinking about your wedding song, or something comes on and makes you cry, or you get what we call God bumps or chills, or your hairs are standing up on the back of your arm. So most people have an identity with music being powerful. So it really is about the awareness of how can you move something more intentional into becoming a practice and even a rite of passage, where you are creating musical moments that literally define your life. So you don't have to wait for them to happen to you. You can program, and this is something that I call becoming the DJ of your own life,
right?
Where you can literally program these rites of passage, and everything from very happy moments to also even transitioning with loved ones. I was like bedside with my mother when she was passing, and played her music that I knew would make it easier for her, where she would feel safer, where hopefully she could, we would relax a little bit more, or have some effect with her to release fear and anxiety over what was coming. And so music can literally create these amazing moments in our lives when we begin to plug them in. I was ready. I knew what was going to be happening. And I knew that I wanted to use a piece of music to help her transition. So in a way, it was, I won't say it was scheduled, but I knew what I wanted to achieve and how I could help her. But literally, we program and schedule almost everything in our lives. Like, how many times did you look at your schedule today?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it's
a bunch.
Right. It's the weekend. I'm sure you're looking at your schedule for the week. Wow, I have this going on Monday. and I have this going on later in the day, and wow, I'm really going to have to be I'm going to have to be up for this one.
Yeah.
Or I'm not looking forward to that. I have to have this tough conversation with my mom, or whatever it is, or I have to visit someone in the hospital. So imagine if you took that next level and like tomorrow even, you looked at your week and said, you know what, I'm going to put a song right in here that I'm going to listen to right before I'm going into this. Or I'm going to start scaling down, and I'm going to start thinking of sleep as something that's sacred, because my body needs to renew and regenerate, and there's lots of things that happen in sleep, from those bodily functions right to very specific spiritual things that happen at night. When we're moving into dream state, we're connecting with our ancestors, we're connecting with loved ones that have passed, we're getting information in our sleep. What would happen if I actually created a soundtrack to help me wind down? Instead of like looking at my phone, watching TV, I began to put on music specifically. And this is another targeted tempo for sleep. There's another whole criteria and protocol that I use where you're starting to listen to music at about 60 beats per minute while you're winding down. So 60 beats per minute is targeting your heart at a relaxed state. Most of us, between 60 to 70 beats per minute is where we are when we're at that relaxed state. So just by having music on in the background that's at that tempo, and again, having music that is not a lot of melody going on. The studies show low and slow frequencies at night.
Okay.
To wind down, definitely no lyrics. And another key part of that for me as a composer and a music producer is intention. So when I'm composing that music, my intention and my emotion are going into everything that's recorded. So when you're listening to a piece of music that I'm creating and it's for sleep, you know that my intention is to serve the highest capacity of healing for whatever that may be, including sleep. So starting to listen at about an hour before you go to sleep. And it's similar to, think about like lighting a candle in a room.
Yeah.
When you light a candle in a room and you walk into that room, you know that something changed, right? The luminosity, right, of that specific candle is creating an ambiance in a room, a place of beauty and serenity.
Yeah.
You don't have to sit and stare at that candle, do you? Right? In terms of doing, you know that is creating the effect, and that's not going to increase the effect of what's happening to you by looking at it. And it's the same thing with music. So you don't have to intently listen to every type of note for this music.
Wow.
All you have to do is allow yourself to kind of move into the pulse of it, which is at that 60 beats per minute. And you'll find that your respiratory rate starts to slow down. You start to adapt to it.
Wow.
Like you do with the candle, you just kind of go, when you walk into a spa and you have this multi-sensory experience of smelling, of the lights being just right. So your environment plays a key role in you winding down at night. So creating that sacredness. And if you do that over a 30-day period, you're going to find that you're moving back into rhythm with really yourself. So everything starts for me with the heart, and about moving the heart into synchrony with the music. So that's what's going on when you're listening at 60 beats per minute. Something goes on that's called entrainment. So you have a metronome in your heart.
Yeah.
In your physical body.
Yeah, when your heart beats, right?
Yeah, that's setting that tempo.
Gotcha.
You have the ability to synchronize with that music. So it's literally adapting to that music and moving into sync with that targeted state that is in the music at 60 beats per minute. So your inner metronome is synchronizing with this external metronome that's present in music, and it's also taking you into a smooth and orderly heart rhythm, which you might have heard of something called heart coherence.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So, so that's exactly what heart coherence is.
Oh, really?
When you're moving into these smooth and orderly rhythms, but it's also connected with what's called an elevated emotion. So at the same time, your physical body's moving into sync with the music. You're also moving into a state of gratitude, when you're coming down
Gotcha.
into more inner peace of kindness and compassion for yourself as well as others, that's called heart coherence. And we could probably do 3 shows on heart coherence and how that connects to brain coherence and how that affects the physical body as well. But just know that that's this targeted state before you're going to sleep at night, because you're moving into a state of gratitude. You're coming back into your own rhythm.
Right.
And that's a perfect transition into going into sleep for rest and rejuvenation. So you're not waking up with the same energy as you're going to sleep with. It's almost like a vibrational shower before bedtime.
I gotcha. So instead of scrolling on my phone for 2 hours, I should put on some 60 to 70 BPM music and get really calm. I didn't realize this, but we were talking before the show, and I've actually listened to a ton of your music. I used to have a lot of trouble going to bed, and my parents put me on to Joe Dispenza's meditation. And you do most of the music, would you say, for Joe Dispenza?
I've done a lot of music. I mean,
Okay.
I've done music somewhere between 50 to 100 meditations with Dr. Joe, and very, very powerful collaborations.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely magical. If you guys haven't checked out Dr. Joe's stuff, it helped me out a lot when I was, I would say 12, 13, 14. And obviously the biggest part was just, there's a saying like your morning starts at night and your night starts at morning, or something like this. And I was not waking up early, so I couldn't go to bed early because I was not tired. And also I would just stay on computers and screens basically like all night, right? And that's just, it doesn't do the right things to your brain right before bed, as opposed to listening to super calm music with these like almost like Tibetan bowls, right? Like that's like a very vibrational sort of instrument.
Yeah, well, those drones are just consistent tones, and those leave a really great anchor, to kind of not be thinking and not analyzing.
Yeah.
And that's why they're used. Ultimately, why it's good for you as well, when you're scrolling down and you're still moving through analyzing and reading.
Yep.
For me, the sweet spots for your audience and when they're utilizing music is going to be in the morning and in the evening.
Yeah.
So when you're waking up in the morning, so what is the sweet spot for what? Is the question. What is it here you want to create in the world? What's your gift that you're looking to share? What do you want to create in terms of, maybe it's a book, maybe it's another piece of music, maybe it's just like a plan or a course that you're offering, whatever it is, or you're just creating a day that you want to create, like the ultimate day. The sweet spot in the morning is because you're coming out of these delta brainwave states, which are your slower brainwave states.
Yeah.
And when you move into imagination, which is in theta and alpha, those your brainwaves in the morning are starting to move a little bit faster. So when you take out your phone first thing in the morning, you're like doing a jump. You're jumping from delta to beta.
Yeah.
So you're missing the sweet spot of like all these ideas coming in, because the flow state is really between alpha and theta, where imagination occurs. And you probably happen, to you when you're walking. We all have different things. Like my mom, I used to teach her and say, "Mom, what are you meditating?" And it would be like while she was washing the dishes. And she said, "Oh, I'm just kind of imagining things." And, she was just going out into her own world. Yeah. But that's when ideas come in. And so if you can carve 15 or 20 minutes before you turn that phone on, you're going to get what I call a download. You're connecting to something beyond yourself. Yep. A field of all potentials, the universe, whatever it is. These are the things that Einstein talked about, imagination being so powerful for us, that these ideas come from someplace else that cannot be explained. So we have the known, which is things we study, things that you're scrolling down and saying, wow, that's really interesting. Right. And there's also the unknown. And if you can kind of balance that in your day so that you're tapping into both, then you find you have more energy to share that gift, whatever it is that you took 20 minutes in the morning and you do that at night, when you're winding down before sleep and you're going from beta and now you're kind of slowing down. and you start journaling, or what do I have to be grateful for today?
Yeah.
Or what were my challenges my day? And you process it a little bit more. And then you start getting ideas. You start allowing yourself to just free fall and write down things, whatever comes to you. Now you've actually dedicated 45 minutes of your day to being in flow state and to birthing something into the world that you want to create.
Right.
Right. And if you do that every day, you have 5 hours that you've done at the end of the week. You have 20 hours at the end of the month. You can, birth a whole project in 20
100%.
hours.
So it's almost like if you do that in the morning, it's almost like sort of a, like the example you gave with your mom, she's washing the dishes and she's like, oh, I'm just imagining things. It's almost like a sort of daydreaming state, right, where you're just exactly like fully in your imagination. You're almost doing something that's like, I wouldn't say mindless, but something where your brain doesn't have to be fully there. It's not like analyzing anything. It's not very analytical. That's really interesting. And I'm not super familiar with alpha, beta, theta brainwaves. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, without getting too technical, the beta is going to be your fastest moving brainwaves. Then you are going to move from beta to alpha. Right, the next one down the line that's more geared towards relaxation. So beta is more for analytical.
Yeah.
We're probably in beta or like low beta right now. And then alpha is going to be more for relaxed but attentive.
Yeah.
So you can still function. You're not like sleeping, but you have a knowledge of,
like maybe when you're getting a massage or something like this.
Yeah, or you're moving into that daydreaming state, but not quite there. So theta is more moving into that daydreaming state, and that's even slower. And then you have delta, which is your sleep state.
Okay, gotcha.
And the lower the vibration, the frequencies go, the slower they are. And that's really the starting point.
Okay, that makes sense. And I haven't really researched these 4 different types of brainwaves much, but now knowing this, I definitely feel inclined to pull out my calendar and start planning out music because, like, I tend to spend more time planning than I probably should, but I feel like it would help me a lot if I was like, oh, I got to wake up early and I really got to get after it this day. I'm going to play, your example, I'm going to play Eye of the Tiger to get out of bed and just start, getting after it or whatever. That's why I'm wondering now, why don't people, well, I guess they do this, but unintentionally, right? You go to the gym and you work out to your workout playlist or whatever. But how do we sort of bring intention and clarity to music choice where people are like, no, I listen to this music because it helps me focus and I get more work done or something like this?
So the starting point that I recommend is thinking of music as you would to nourish yourself as you do with food. So just as we eat, most of us eat 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
Imagine programming your day with music in mind for those. So just like breakfast, when you're eating breakfast, you're breaking the fast. That's where the word comes from. And you're choosing what to put into your body to break that fast. Sometimes people are conscious of that, sometimes they're not. Same thing with music. You're breaking the fast of not hearing a lot of sound for 8 hours. What's the first thing that you really want to put into your awareness first thing in the morning? So for that, I always recommend to people who are getting into music and sound healing and music for transformation, that if you can learn to listen to what I call your inner symphony, so the music within you, and you can actually tune into those sounds on a very subtle level. Imagine how now it's going to be amplified as you move into your day and you start to listen to music, for working out or music for focus. It's going to be amplified because your senses are so keen and so tuned in. So I'm going to invite you to do something with me, and we can do this with the audience as well, is just place your hands in your heart. And this is what I do to start my day in the morning, is each one of us has our own unique vibration. We've stopped doing this in schools where kids used to pledge allegiance and put their hands on their heart. So I think we need to learn how to reconnect with our heart, because there's a conversation that goes on here. When you place your hands on your heart, you're bringing an awareness there as soon as you place your hands on your heart that it's something sacred. Like imagine asking someone that you know, your wife or someone very close to you, can you place your hand on my heart? You wouldn't just let anyone do that because it's something that's very sacred.
Right.
So when you do it, it's very sacred as well. You're placing your hand on your heart. And as soon as I do that, I have an awareness going on. Like I can tune in and shut out the external world. I'm going into my own physical body here, but I'm also tapping into the center of what I call your center of your soul awareness here. And the first thing I do is just allow myself to feel my own heartbeat. So you're becoming familiar with your own unique vibration. So all of us have a heartbeat. That's something, a common denominator that weaves through all of us, but yours is like no one else's, and your breath is like no one else's. So when you come into this awareness of just placing your hands on your heart, you're getting familiar with your home base. So whatever goes on in your day, you have people and challenges and situations that come at you, that you can actually renew yourself and refresh yourself by just going inward and placing your hands on your heart, giving yourself a big breath in. So notice I didn't say take a breath in, but give yourself a breath in. Like each breath is a gift that's being given to you by something outside of yourself. It's just not you here. There's something working in conjunction without you even knowing every time you're breathing during your day. So do this with awareness. Give yourself a big breath in through your heart and a big breath out through your heart. Do that one more time. Big breath in through your heart. And a big breath out through your heart. And every breath, that ah is basically a soul sound. So it's your soul saying everything's going to be okay. As you sigh out, you're releasing stress and tension from your physical body. And one last breath in. And one last breath out. And literally, you can create a transition in your state of being in, under 5 minutes by just tapping into your own energy. And so many times in our day, you start out with this playlist, you start out in gratitude, something comes at you that was unexpected, throws you off base or off kilter.
Right.
And that's where the awareness comes in. Are you going to let it just snowball into another, like one of those days? Or are you going to lift it up?
Start the day with intention.
Oh my God, it was one of those days.
Exactly.
So keeping your awareness on how you can shift using music, sound, and vibration. And sound and vibration start off in us as well. That's where we started off the interview.
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception? And ultimately, your podcast is all about light. Right? So this is where your light shines from. It's from your heart space.
Yeah.
This is where your dreams are. Everything's activated from the heart. How do you want to fan the flames of your heart to create more light? So you have to fan your flames by feeding it. Right? You have to give energy to whatever it is that gives you joy and brings you joy. So it's not just a matter of like doing exercises. It's having a conscious awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where I'm feeding my energy from. This has the strongest electromagnetic field. And that's why when you walk into a room, you have it. Right? When you walk into a room, people are like, wow, who's this guy? That's all emanating from your heart and your intention. So it's like taking care of that racehorse.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You have to give it a lot of self-love. And most people don't give it to their hearts, and men especially. This is great that, we have two men here talking about being in your heart space. It doesn't mean sacrificing masculinity. It's not about masculinity or femininity. It's really about just tapping into the balance of the two.
Right.
And that happens in the heart.
Yeah.
So
It's like heart harmony.
And above, right below is the feminine energy, the earth. Above is the heavens. And actually the integration of that comes in the heart space where you actually integrate masculine and feminine energy.
That's super interesting. Number one, that little exercise we just did, wild. I thought I was calm before. I feel much more calm.
Yeah.
And
I feel it too.
yeah, man, what you've been saying about how starting your day with intentionality, especially with your music choice, I love this quote. It's your body's made up of what you put in your mouth, and your mind is made up by what you put in your ears and your eyes. So a lot of people are pretty conscious about not looking at their phones first thing in the morning, getting some sunlight in their eyes. But I've never really heard anybody say, be intentional about the first thing that you hear or listen to in the morning.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And imagine, just listening to your heartbeat and breath.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
does that do? It brings in a gratitude that no matter what's going on in my life, wow, I woke up again.
Mm-hmm.
I have my heartbeat, I have my breath. And that just ripples out into your day. So imagine starting every morning like that and making a commitment to do that. And then it ripples out through your day into lunch. Like, what are you gonna program in here? And there's like a lot of different things I like to do in that space, because it's usually meant towards, just like lunch, you're recharging your energy. You need something to bring in to keep going, and to keep that fanning that flame. So I ask myself, do I want music that's going to bring me up? Because I'm behind a computer a lot. Do I want to get up and kind of dance and move? Or do I want something, am I experiencing anxiety? Do I need to get out of the mental state?
Yeah.
And if I want to get out of the mental state, sometimes I'll chant for 5 minutes or so. And chanting, just a lot of new studies behind chanting of Om, chanting of something called the Kirtan Kriya, where you're actually doing mudras with your fingers. So I'm not going to get into all that. But if people are curious about it, you can find research on PubMed on the chanting of Om, how it creates a sense of inner peace. The Kirtan Kriya literally creating more function in the brain, expanding and length of telomeres, which are, for all the people watching who have like longevity, they're looking into biohacking. Music's the oldest biohack.
Right.
We've been biohacking with music way before we started talking about it over the last 20 years. These things, drumming, chanting.
Oh, yeah.
All of these things. So do something in the middle of your day that's going to move you out of the analytical. Also, a fun thing to do, shift your environment. I'll listen to a piece of music from another part of the world. So I call it a 5-minute vacation. I'll go to YouTube and type in music from the Orient or music from Jamaica. And I imagine that I'm there. I'm tasting the foods. I'm feeling my feet on the beaches, whatever it is. So I shift my environment.
Very
and then
interesting.
at night, what we talked about, the winding down part are what I put into the category of acoustaceuticals.
I love that word, by the way. It's
you.
fantastic.
Thank you. So we have pharmaceuticals, we have nutraceuticals. Acoustaceuticals are therapeutic ways to use music as medicine. And they're low cost, non-invasive, great things to try some of the things that we're talking about to support things that you might be doing with your standard of care or whatever your doctor is working on you with.
So if you were to prescribe one acoustaceutical medicine to the people watching, what would it be? Would it be the morning, the evening, or somewhere in between?
So that's where I would invite your audience in to participate, because I think for me, it's not me prescribing. I think like shifting the consciousness to how can I decide what music is going to work for me.
Oh, okay.
So, and that involves if you go inward and you ask yourself about a piece of music, does this feel expansive to my heart, or does it feel contracting? Expansive, like being, underneath a night sky. And, that energy's coming in. Contracted, you feel like you're covering up. So you can listen to any piece of music. But ultimately, what piece of music would you prescribe for yourself right now?
Okay.
Like, what do you think that you need? Like, what's most important to you right now? What's going on in your life? And if you had to write a prescription for that, and you might say, well, no, I really need music to help me go to sleep at night. Then I would recommend a series I have called Ambiology. That was a lot of the pieces work really well for sleep at 60 beats per minute, low and slow frequencies. if you were working with your heart more and you want to move into that heart coherent state that I'm talking about, I would recommend a piece of music I have called the Heart Codes that was designed specifically for heart coherence and is very powerful. For breathing, I have a series called Ignite the Heart. So if you're doing a lot of breath work and you want to move energy and more like epic, inspirational, you want beats, you want something to like work out to as well.
Right.
The Ignite the Heart series is great for that.
Cool, man. So it's never one size fits all. You're your own acoustic doctor. Go like try out a bunch of stuff, see what fits, kind of deal.
Yeah, and like I said, there's some standards and starting places which we've talked about, right? But ultimately, you want to be able to decide what is going to work for you on a daily basis, and that's really the key. You know, your vibration and your energy changes on a daily basis.
Oh, 100%.
Right, like you say, you had a challenge that you've been holding on to, a conversation you've been meaning to have for like months, and you've had anxiety around it, and then all of a sudden the next day, after you've had that conversation, aren't you going to feel like more open and 100%? Expansive?
Yeah. It's off my chest, so to speak, right?
Right. So are you going to listen to the same piece of music that you were even the day before? Like, again, that was like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
That was a big amount of energy that you moved. Don't you want to accent that with something like really important to get momentum and moving into a new area in your life? So as you release energy, that's where the awareness comes in too. Where do I want to go now that there's this opening? So it's not just about setting intentions and checking things off like on to-do lists.
Yeah.
It's about setting intentions for specific times in our lives that we want to move to. Mission, legacy, purpose. And, you know, there's specific times in our lives where, you know, those things, you can really define those. Like
100%.
You know, I know when my dad bought me my first electric guitar at 14 years old, and I promised that I was going to stay with music, that something happened in that promise. There was a rite of passage that happened there where I literally became a man in that moment because I knew that I had an obligation and that he believed in me enough to buy me this guitar. So you can define those. You don't have to wait for them to happen is what I'm saying.
I like that a lot. So speaking of purpose and legacy and all of these things, when your dad gifted you that guitar when you were 14, were you just like, this will be a cool hobby? Or were you like, this is the thing that I'm going to do?
You know, I have to be honest with you, a little of both.
Okay.
Like, I think I knew that this was going to be what I was going to do, but also we carry ancestral patterns of our family as well. So my dad's belief, although it was really hard for him to buy me that guitar because it was, you know, he really couldn't afford it. So he wanted to believe that I could, you know, my son could do this for the rest of his life and it's going to create abundance, but it just wasn't in his frame of focus, you know, what he taught. So the mantra in my house, you know, was music's a nice hobby, but what are you going to do for a living? Yeah. So I had this dichotomy, you know, which one do I choose? And that didn't really happen until I was like 28 or 29. But that same guitar that he bought me, this is the fun part of the story, had the name Les Paul on the guitar.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I would look at that guitar like every day. And as a producer coming up, you know, in New York, I would say, wow, you know, if I like sold this guitar, you know, I could have 3 months or 4 months of rent. This is at the beginning of my career. But I made that promise. And literally almost 30 years to the day after, I started working with Les Paul,
That's
the guy
so
whose
fucking
name
cool,
was on
man.
the guitar.
That's so awesome. I love that.
And then, you know, then achieving the Grammy with him as well. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that for me, you know, you talk about the law of attraction, what's needed within that for something to occur. And it's not just the intention, it's the emotion behind it and becoming the vibration of what you're seeking.
Okay.
So I literally, looking at that every day, it was instilled in me, wow, my dad believed in me. I believe in myself.
It's a hell of a motivator, man.
That's it.
For sure.
And it became something associated, that I associated with quality and belief in myself when I looked at that.
I love that, man. And that's, That's a very, very powerful way to start the day, because I'm a firm believer in, of course, the law of attraction is amazing, and there's no discounting that, but the law of cause and effect is very important, right? That's what we sort of gripe about on this show all the time. And you could say that the cause of you getting up and working so hard every day was you looked at that guitar and you were like, I made a promise to my dad.
Yeah.
I have to go do this.
I mean,
right?
it was something I loved doing. And, that was the key.
Right.
I don't think he would have bought it for me if he knew that it wasn't something that I loved. He could see, like, me playing the acoustic guitar. I was already writing songs.
Oh, wow.
So I think he knew that it was going to be something that was important in my life. And that's why he invested his energy in it as well. And that was the thing that fanned the flames of my heart. At 14, that flame was already there, but he literally, he ignited it when he bought me that.
That's so magic, man. And wow. Okay. So you're 14, you get bought a guitar, and then you said 20 years later, you're working with Les Paul?
No. So I started more than 20 years when I started working with Les Paul. So it was 30 years.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. When I started working with him. So he bought me when I was 14. I was 44 years old when I started working with Les. Yeah.
And then fast forward a little bit more, you guys are awarded a Grammy. What was that like? And did you plan on that when you were 14? You got gifted that guitar. Were you like, I'm gonna take over the world with this thing?
I didn't when I was 14, but as I became a professional producer in New York and I was a major label, I was, I had some successes in it. I did start thinking about that, and literally when I got my first loft in New York and I moved it out of my apartment into like a real deal recording studio.
Nice.
That was part of my intention. Like, what would this place look and feel like if it was owned by a Grammy Award-winning producer?
Ooh.
And so that's how I kind of set the energy of the place, of some place I would love to walk into on a daily basis.
Yep.
And just feel like, oh man, this is home. And that's really, when we started kind of seeing Les, we started going to see him play live, and it's it wasn't something that was expected for anybody. He was 90 years old when that album was released. He was known for jazz guitar, as being a jazz guitar player.
Yeah.
He won for best rock instrumental and best pop instrumental.
That's crazy.
At 90 years old. So it shows me that, that we can constantly redefine ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And for those of your listeners who are not familiar, like with Les Paul, you want to look up Les, because he was literally, the way we make music now is based on all the inventions of Les Paul, not just the guitar.
And the name of that song was 69 something?
69 Freedom Special.
Yeah, okay, there you go. You guys have to look it up. I looked it up before this interview and I was blown away. I didn't realize that you could make those sounds with an electric guitar. Is kind of the deal. He's like, it's wild. You guys got to look it up. But yeah, we talk about on this show a lot something that we call the transformation equation. It's your vision plus your plan multiplied by your action equals transformation. And when you got your first loft, you had a vision of, well, this is what this place would look like if I was a Grammy award-winning artist. Your plan was, let's make some music and hopefully get a Grammy. And your action was, we're going to go make music now. And a lot of people tend to have a difficult time with the plan part. And of course with music, it's not necessarily a lottery ticket, but it's difficult to obviously make a Grammy award-winning song. How was the sort of planning process when you guys were doing that sort of thing? Or was it more like we're going by the shooting from the hip type of deal?
A little of both. And, most successes in any field that you're in are going to be a combination of being prepared for the moment and having as much mastery as you possibly can to walk into a room and release all of it and not know a damn thing. Right? So that's really the key. Yeah. Is you have to put out in the time and effort to get as much mastery as you possibly can. And even more so in this day and age with music now, because there's so many more people creating it and it's so readily available that that's the key thing I would tell people is always become as proficient as you can in what you're doing, and the cream always rises to the top. Now, in terms of creating, us saying, okay, we're going to create a Grammy award-winning track, for me, it was, I'm going to create the best track that I possibly can with what I've been given. And then part of what I was doing within the process was taking multiple takes by multiple musicians and putting it into a cohesive format that would be geared more towards something that people could listen to. It was almost like initially a jam session. Interesting. And so I'm like, I don't care if I got to stay up for 3 days. I'm going through every track that was recorded and see if I could find the gems and there were a lot of gems. I mean, you're talking about like major artists, Edgar Winter and Heron Bullock on guitar and Les Paul and a lot of amazing musicians. So and just having fun with it, being like that kid who just got that guitar at 14 years old, I just had so much fun playing it for the first time. You have to take the fun part into it and not take it too seriously at the same time as you're giving it your all, you're giving it your best, but have fun with it. Enjoy the creative process in everything that you do. And that's something that's weaved basically through my life, something that I enjoy. And the reason I'll never retire is because I enjoy creating something from nothing every day.
Wow.
Even if it's 10 minutes that I get behind the keyboard, that 10 minutes of music didn't exist before I had the idea for it. So if I can do that and birth something into the world like every day, then I'm happy. You can ask my wife. If I don't create like every day, I get a little cranky.
A little cranky Barry?
I do, yeah. I really do, because that's part of what fans my flame.
Right.
And, the more you have the conversation with your heart and not just like in an esoteric way, like you really are having a conversation with your heart, the more you fine tune in what your heart needs on a daily basis. And you get more intuition, more listening to your gut in situations of things that look good on paper. But something's telling you,
we got to change this. We got to switch it around a little bit.
Yeah, or I'm not going to work with that person. I know I should really want to because he's this, that, and this, and he has this many followers, and this would do that, and this would do that. But something's just not sitting right.
Right.
That's what happens when you start having these conversations with your heart, and it's not complicated, but it's powerful. Even that process that we just did, I did that for a purpose and with an intention, because no one can say I don't have 60 seconds in my day to just place my hands in my heart.
Right. Yeah, and it's very powerful. I implore you watching this to try that little exercise that we just did. So going back to what you said about not taking your setbacks too seriously, what do you do when you face some sort of a failure or setback or something like this?
I usually integrate and try not to react. I try to respond as much as I can. I'm human, and we all have triggers. We all have our own issues and things that our energy wants to go towards, our gravity, so to speak, based on our past experiences. So I try to really look at that, like, what's the gravity behind this? Like, what is this really related to when I have a setback? Integrate it as much as I can and move on. And the creative process works really well for me for that. So if I can create something new, I'm connecting to the creator energy. And the creator energy, I mean, look around you, take a walk in nature, look at flowers, look at the ocean. There's no shortage of waves or colors in flowers, right? There's no creative blocks. So when you can actually invite that energy into co-create with you on a daily basis, that's a great way to move past failures. Just create something new. It's
almost like energetic transmutation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what that was a great thing that I learned from my dad. He was like, if you ever get going back to the working out example, if you ever get angry and you don't really know what to do, just go pump iron for like 20 minutes, and then chances are you'll be less angry and happy that you got a workout in. You know what I mean? It's it's super ideal. And some of my favorite pieces of music were written while the person was feeling super, super heavy emotions, right? And that like translates through the piece of music. It's really interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's it's like you said, you kind of pour your heart into the music, and you hope that goes into the receiving person's heart, right?
Right. That's exactly it. That's called resonance. So
yeah.
When I'm creating that in that moment, something resonates with you when you listen to it. And resonance is when one frequency magnifies the frequency of something else in that same frequency.
Gotcha.
So you're amplifying that person. And the more people that listen to that as well, that music takes on a field of its own and kind of grows because more people have listened to it. And so everything goes into it. And that's a lot of the times when I'm working with artists, their focus tends to be on the technical aspects of it.
Right.
And, did I get that note right? How does it sound? And I usually look at the inaccuracies, that little crack in the artist's voice where I can feel their emotion, or you can actually hear a smile when someone's singing as well. How can you hear a smile? Because it's going into the music. And a lot of times that's when that guy sang that part, oh my God, I can feel that emotion, and that's what creates the effect of you being moved by a piece of music, is that artists put everything into that.
What did you call the when you get goosebumps from listening to a song? Because this happens to me all the time when I'm listening to music.
Yeah, I mean, I
really
call
like.
them God bumps. I think people call them different things.
Yeah.
But that's our physical body. Again, how music affects us physically. Like, how can you explain that?
Yeah, it's.
I'm sure there's a scientific, way to explain that.
It like tickles your brain in a certain way or whatever. But like you just said, it's your body having a physical reaction to something non-physical, right? Because I can't touch music, I can't see music, but I can definitely hear it. It's a vibration, just like not to get too esoteric, but everything in this room is a vibration, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're all vibrating at a certain frequency, and that's why I can see you, you can see me. I can't put my hand through this table, right? So to say that music doesn't have any sort of effect on you is silly, because that is a vibration that's going into your head that is also a vibration, and it's changing around. It's got to be changing around something, and that's why we get these physical bumps. What I mean?
And that's I use that example because most people have had that experience.
Exactly.
But if we kind of come full circle and we talk about how the heart's a metronome in our body and ground it into physical experiences, think of your body as an orchestra.
Yeah.
And all of the different systems in your body being a different part of that orchestra. Mm. Now imagine if all of those systems decided that they were going to play whatever music they wanted to at whatever tempo they wanted to, like what that would sound like. So there needs to be a set tempo and an agreed upon key for the song.
A standardization of your orchestra, right?
Right. So that's your heart's job, is literally setting the rhythm for all these systems to move into this coherent state. And when they do, what happens? Well, we have more beneficial physical health. So the studies show that it increases what's called our heart rate variability, which are the beat-to-beat changes in our hearts, which they use as a marker for not only heart health, but for physical health, when you can increase your heart rate variability. Yeah. And literally, music can do that. It can increase your heart rate variability, and a lot of physical changes occur when that happens. Better sleep, your immune system is stronger, you rest and digest better, you detox better. So there's a lot of physical things that go on just from listening to a piece of music and moving into heart coherence.
I've never talked to anybody that has the same sort of perspective on music as you. Who are some of the people that have inspired you in the past, and why?
Okay. So Les Paul is obviously one of them.
Of course.
Just because his unique way of looking at creativity, literally when he was asked why he created the electric guitar, his answer was so simple, humorous, and even profound, was that it wasn't there and we needed it. And he created it because some guy in a bar couldn't hear him, right? And they said, Les, we can hear your harmonica, but we can't hear your guitar. And they were throwing like things at him. You know, he was in this bar in the South and they had this chicken wire in front. And he left kind of pissed. He said, I'm going to create a solution for this. So just being ahead of his time and not being afraid to think out of the box and look what was created from that ripple. So Les is definitely one of them. You know, guys like Bruce Springsteen, who literally, you know, I saw him at the year that the track won the Grammy, and they had all this high-tech stuff going on. They had Madonna there with the gorillas and animations and Mary J. Blige and U2. It was amazing. And then Bruce Springsteen comes out with an acoustic guitar and just his voice. Wow. And literally, talk about, you know, those goosebumps or God bumps, right? He had such a profound effect with literally something much more simple and something you could feel. So I think any artist who can do that and literally capture not only an audience, but literally, you know, a period of time where he affected the country in such a profound way as well. So he's one. And then guys like Stevie Wonder, who just, you know,
he's a magic man. Yeah,
influenced so many other people. When you think of the people that he influenced, and Sly and the Family Stone, and then Sly and the Family Stone influenced Prince, who then influenced Bruno Mars. Like, you have to like look at how all of these things amplify.
Yeah, it's like a musical lineage almost.
Yeah, exactly. That one, you know, one cannot not affect, you know, one by listening to the other one. So. Yeah, those are just some of them.
What you said about Bruce Springsteen is very interesting because, like, especially today, if you have a good producer and like a medium to bad artist, you can make a really, really good song. We have all of these tools now that you didn't have 20, 30 years ago, right? Like there's a bunch of stuff, you know, you can mix, master, all the auto-tune, all of that, like super post-production stuff. But Bruce Springsteen walks out and he goes, no, this is just, I'm going to play my guitar and I'm going to sing. Yeah. And he moved a bunch of people. That is, like, for lack of a better word, that's magical. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's an absolute miracle that we have these vocal cords that make a certain vibration out into the world and people can hear them and go, oh, wow, that's like... Yeah, and that's the mastery, too. Again, exactly what we talked about before. Being prepared for that moment. Yeah. And knowing that that was the song he was going to do based on what everyone else was doing. That's where the mastery comes in. And knowing how he could affect an audience. Yeah, that was a choice, right? Just coming out with that acoustic guitar. And I'm sure there was a little bit of anticipation or fear before he came out. For sure. And the aspects of not knowing exactly what was going to happen, which is the unknown. And, you know, this is what I'm kind of moving into with future creations is how do we experience hybrid creativity where we're tapping into mastery and knowledge, but at the same time, we're still tapping into the part of us that doesn't know, the unknown. And I think that's really going to be the key for how we embrace like the next 10 years of creation is still bringing your mastery into that creation and who you are, whether it's as an artist or a business person or whatever, and then combining that and not being afraid to step into the unknown and surrender to the unknown. That's really interesting, man. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what do you think it would be? That 14-year-old that just got gifted a Les Paul guitar, what do you think you would say? Have fun and don't worry. I love it. I love it, man. Have fun and don't worry. They almost seem sort of synonymous, but it's like, you know, they're both incredibly important, right? Yeah, I like that a lot. Why do you think that would be the one thing? You hop in the time machine, you go back there, have fun, don't worry. Why is that the one?
I mean, that's where I am like right now in my life. I'm just having a lot of fun and I'm not worrying anymore. But, just like everybody else has challenges in their lives, and that part of us that has to deal with those challenges on a daily basis and reinvent ourselves. Like I've reinvented myself, 5 times over in my career. And you're supposed to feel a little bit of fear when you're going into new areas.
100%.
So I don't think that fear is necessarily a bad thing or worrying is a bad thing. It's just a matter of how long do you want to stay in it. You don't want it to occupy or take away from your ability to enjoy yourself as well. So, and there were times in my life where I've worried more than other times in my life, but not anymore. And it's a great place to be at a later part of your life when you're like, wow, this is even more fun than, when I was 20 years old or 30 years old.
Right.
So
I liked what you said just then. You said, I don't think fear is necessarily a bad thing, but I don't want it to like occupy my life and kind of like take over and saturate my waking hours. You know what I mean? And I absolutely agree because it, biologically and sort of like evolutionarily, fear is there so that we run away from the tiger. Once we're gone from the tiger, fear goes bye-bye, right?
Sure.
But there's, now we don't really have that tiger. That tiger is now like, oh my God, I have bills to pay. Oh my goodness, all of these things, right? Oh my goodness, it's tax season. Oh my goodness, I'm breaking up with my girlfriend, whatever it is. What would you say to someone watching this that's experiencing more fear than they would like? What's the sort of inoculation or the cure to that feeling?
Again, I think it's about coming back to the heart and asking yourself, is this fanning the flames of my heart? Like, what's one thing I could do in this moment that would feed, I'll just say like that 14-year-old kid for me. And it is basically coming back into our child more than our adult. I know it sounds cliche talking about like the inner child, but it's really true. Like what's going to feed that child's joy?
100%.
In this moment. And sometimes that's a hard switch to do when you're like deep in, anxiety or you're in worry or you're in fear. And that's where, I would say music comes in the most as a lifeline that literally pulls us out of moments. I mean, I had someone come up to me at an event and said, I always wanted to tell you this, but literally a year ago, I was in the desert and I was thinking about ending my life. And I listened to a piece of music that you did called Lay Down in Love. And I literally listened to it over and over again the whole night. And in the morning, I woke up and walked out of the car. And up until that point, I never thought of like music as being something that would save somebody's life per se.
Wow.
But music can be a lifeline to us. And even just having what I call your happy song, one song that you acknowledge that makes you happy, for people who out there who are watching, like, well, I don't know where to begin. What's one song that when you listen to it makes you happy? So for me, it's like the Jackson 5, The Love You Save. And when I listen to that song, it's really hard for me to be, in a bad mood. So like, what's one song that makes you happy? And just start your day or utilize it in that moment that you're talking about where, you're really having something that's going on in your life and in some type of struggle, and use that to kind of reprogram yourself or to reboot, and then tap back into your heart. Just place your hands on your heart, breathe slowly, come back into you. Most likely it's something that someone has done that's triggered something in you, but it's not really who you are. Yeah. And who you are on your most basic level is within that vibration that we talked about in your heart. So if you can just come back into the basic, I call it your heart code. This is your vibration that you've come into this life with. If you can just come back into that on a daily basis, something's going to happen that you can't explain. And just do that every day. Start training yourself to engage with it
using music strategically seems like it should be in everybody's sort of toolbox, right? Like a lot of people do it sort of like we talked about. A lot of people do it sort of unconsciously. Like they go to the gym, they listen to rah music or whatever. If you can utilize that for getting calm to go to sleep, focusing when you're working, even waking up in the morning, or anything like this, you can deepen the. I guess for lack of a better word, you can deepen the amount of work, the amount of sleep, the amount of whatever that you do. You just really get you get intentional. Again, music is a bridge. I love this analogy. You have your state right now, your desired state, and what is in between that is music, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit tired, but I want to get amped and I want to go to the gym. So I'm going to listen to whatever it is, the Eye of the Tiger, right? The Rocky song. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely going to use this in the future. This has been super useful for me. I like the idea of, strategically listening to music, scheduling out songs in your day. If you were to, I guess you already said that nothing is ever just one way. There's no real cookie cutter for anybody. Mm-hmm. But in your experience, what do you think the number one highest return on investment sort of acousticeutical protocol people have instilled is? Is it like the morning one or the late night one? I struggle with my sleep personally, but do you think, like, which one do you think is just generally the best for people, I guess?
So I would say starting your day and, just clearing your energy at the beginning of your day. And that's eventually going to move into your sleep cycle as well. Right. So how you start your day is just really important. It's like wiping all the energy, think of a blackboard that's filled up with all the, what you did the day before. If you wrote everything down on a blackboard, if you don't clear that energy from the day before, you come into your new day is
Gotcha.
like a new birth.
Yeah, it's a vibrational shower, like you said.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
And I think that, inventory, I would say I would invite all the listeners to inventory your music. You probably have music already that you can move into different playlists. And I wrote a book on this called The Secret Language of the Heart. And the book actually has 7 different playlists for different things. So if people are like, oh, this feels like so much work that I have to do, that they can actually have 7 basic playlists. It's my music per se, but it will give you the idea of it, and that would be a great starting point for people as well.
Amazing, man. Where can our audience go learn more about you, your mission, your book, and connect with you on social media and things?
Yeah, BarryGoldsteinMusic.com is a great hub for all of my courses. A lot of things I do with musical branding as well are on there. And it will also connect you to Spotify and my YouTube channels. And so I'm pretty easily found and available as well. So,
thank you for your time, Mr. Barry.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
You're awesome.